Καλησπέρα σε όλους. Good afternoon. We are live on YouTube. So, Professor Koundouri, if we can start when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lydia. It is a true pleasure to be able to present in this conference identifying and highlighting the significant role that circular economy can have on the sustainability transition. Let me share my presentation so that you can follow my points more smoothly. So can you see the presentation now? Okay, I see heads moving, so I guess you can see it. Okay, so I will be talking about the circular economy and its role in leading the sustainability transition, and I will also be making the case for sustainability recovery from COVID-19 pandemic. And in particular, I'll be making the economic case for that. I will be arguing that is not only environmentally sustainable to recover from this pandemic based on the SDGs and the European Green Deal, but it is also economically efficient and socially efficient to do so. So I guess you've all seen this sketch or were involved in discussions that are consistent with this sketch. We all know that the COVID pandemic has led to a huge recession, unprecedented recession, and also that at the same time of the pandemic and the huge recession, we are facing the effects of climate change. These three big crises have to be dealt with simultaneously, and it is not easy to do so. It is not easy to do so because in order to flatten the infection curve, you need to steep the microeconomic recession curve, which means keeping people employed, even if guaranteed, governments channeling financial support to public and private institutions that support the vulnerable, safeguarding SMEs against bankruptcy, create policies to support the financial system as non-performing loans mount, and develop fiscal packages comparable to the crisis-related loss of GDP in order to restart the economy. And of course, these fiscal packages need to be financed by national debt, and we all know that we've proven that we are not very efficient in handling debt crisis, because after the resolution of the pandemic-related recession, which we don't know if it's going to come soon or if it's going to take time to recover, we definitely know that we're going to face a debt crisis because all these recovery packages are financed by national debt. And of course, we all know and we are feeling the effects of climate crisis. The increase in global temperature has led to extreme. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because I had a weird Zoom popping up. Okay, so I continue. We know and we face currently the effects of climate change. There is no country in the world that is not experiencing the drastic effects of climate change. And these effects translate into billions, hundreds of billions of dollars annually of economic losses. And in addition, unfortunately, millions of people people's lives being lost. Between 1998 and 2017, 1.3 million people were killed and 4.4 billion were injured in natural disasters related to climate change. So we need a different way of growing. We need a model that will allow sustainable growth, that we will allow meeting human development goals while sustaining the ability of natural systems to provide the natural resources and ecosystem services upon which the economy and society depend. Currently, the major mobilizers for the sustainable, for the transition to sustainable growth are first, global climate neutrality, which we expect to materialize through the use of renewables and all technologies matured or currently being matured and related to decarbonization, circular economy, the transition to circular economy, and nature-based solutions. And together with climate neutrality transition, the other two mobilizers are, of course, large infrastructural projects on climate adaptation and resilience, and thirdly, sustainable finance. And I'm going to come back to these three later on in my presentation. In order to move towards such a sustainable framework, we need to focus on Agenda 2030, the 17 SDGs, the Climate Paris Agreement, and if located in Europe, the European Green Deal, and the Recovery and Resilient Plan, EU Next Generation, which are all based on climate mainstreaming and digital mainstreaming, supporting economic growth and social cohesion. So what do we have already in place as policies in order to enable the sustainability transition? Obviously, the 17 Sustainable Development goals that cover all that has to do with people, their prosperity, and their interaction with the planet. We have the Paris Climate Agreement. We have the explicit announcement by the Intergovernmental Policy Panel on Climate Change that 2 degrees increase in average temperature is too much. We need to limit the increase in temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to the pre-industrial era. And in 2019, we as Sustainable Development Solutions Network, we announced during the Climate Week of the UN in New York, the 6 transformations to achieve the SDGs. So the 17 SDGs can be grouped into 6 major transformations that can be efficiently integrated in national programs because they mirror the way governments are structured and administered. So we need sustainable education, health, decarbonization, energy decarbonization, sustainable food production, land, water, and oceans, sustainable communities and cities, and the digital revolution to sustainable development. December 2019, we have the European Green Deal, 4 major axes: climate neutrality by 2050, protection of biodiversity and cancelling out pollution to protect human health, clean tech leadership, of European companies and the just transition, the inclusive transition that leaves no one behind. And we all know that we have now the 9 different policies of the European Green Deal, biodiversity from farm to fork, sustainable agriculture, clean energy, sustainable industry, building and renovating, sustainable mobility, eliminating pollution and climate action. And these 9 policies are governed by horizontal priorities that are circular economy and just transition, leave no one behind. And the European Green Deal is supported by the EU climate law and the European Climate Pact with the citizens of the European Union. And of course, the European Green Deal is supported within 1 trillion budget, half of it coming from the EU budget and the other half coming from to be leveraged from public-private partnership. 2020, we have the coronavirus, as I said before, flattening the infection curve, steepens the microeconomic recession curve. But the good news is that the recovery and resilience plans are in accordance, are consistent with the European Green Deal, requesting the projects that are going to be financed by EU Next Generation, the 750 billion euros, in addition to the multi-annual financial framework of the European Green Deal, has to be climate mainstream and digital mainstream. So our future needs to be climate, digital, create jobs and growth, and be fully inclusive and just. In order to be able to make this transition, it is crucial to understand that what is happening in Europe is not just happening in Europe. So it's not just the Balkans, it's not just Southern Europe, it's the whole of Europe that has committed to this European Green Deal, but it is also something that seems to be a trend that mobilizes policy throughout the world, or at least has started to do so. We have a pact for a Green New Deal in Panama. South Korea has a Green New Deal. Israel has a commitment to green recovery. The new president of the US has committed to an infrastructure green recovery, and importantly, China has announced in September 2020 that they are committing to climate neutrality by 2060. If you see the map of a national government pledge in place and incoming up in my slide, you will see that there is an acceleration towards top-down mobilization for a green recovery. And this recovery needs to be inclusive. It needs to be based on the principles that I mentioned already, that is the principles of climate neutrality, sustainable finance, and climate adaptation projects. It needs to be inclusive. It needs to be co-designed by all relevant stakeholders. And in redesigning the growth model, we need to be aware of the fact that what we need is to restructure our system in order to function better. We need to reorganize the elements of our system in a way that will function better and produce fundamental transformations in all aspects of the economy, the society, the financial system, in order to enable triggering exponential change towards an inclusive and climate resilient economy and society. If we keep the current system, if we don't re-innovate our system, then the change will only be incremental, and it will not allow us the pace that we need in order to be able to face on time, the challenges of climate change, but also the challenges of the very weak economic growth and very low investments, real investments in the economy that we've been facing the last decade. There are good news, because this transition can be mobilized by the fact that renewables are consistently cheaper than fossil fuels by 2020. Energy storage installations increase exponentially. Strong energy efficiency improvements are possible. There is a technology for large-scale carbon capture. There is technology for the transition to electric mobility, excuse me. There is knowledge for nature-based solutions. And of course, one big mobilizer is the transition to circular economy. Circular economy, sets a direction for a future way of producing and consuming. And although we will never reach 100% circularity, it is a way to transform our system and to address structural waste in the current systems. Yes? Okay, I'm continuing, although I am hearing my voice. Thank you. So what are the principles of circular economy? I'm sure that in this wonderful conference, you have heard about all this before, and all these concepts have been connected to Balkan project on circular economy. But let me briefly remind you that the first principle is preserving and enhancing natural capital by controlling finite stocks and balancing renewable resource flows. The second principle is optimize the resource yields by circulating products, components, and materials. And the third principle is fostering system effectiveness by revealing and designing out negative externalities. So it is important also to understand how a circular economy reduces the environmental and carbon footprint. It designs out waste and pollution and reduces greenhouse gas emissions across the value chain. It keeps products and materials in use to retain the embodied energy in products and materials, and it regenerates natural system to sequester carbon in soil and products. And there is also a very explicit economic case for circular economy. It creates cost savings for businesses. It is relevant for all scales of businesses, small, medium enterprises, and larger enterprises. It has the potential to create more than 500,000 jobs in innovative design, business model, research, recycling, manufacturing, and product development. And these are more than 500,000 jobs in Europe. It has it enables, as I indicated before, reduction in EU carbon emissions, and the estimated number is 450 million tons by 2030. And it also enables the reduction of the greater environmental footprint by optimizing waste management and boosting recycling and reducing landfill. By 2050, on a global scale, on an EU scale first, we've estimated a 56% cut in emissions from heavy industry due to the transition to circular economy, and 45% cut global emissions from steel, stem, and plastic and aluminum products. Another interesting feature of circular economy is that it creates both private financial benefits in terms of profits, but also public benefits in terms of better environmental quality and social benefits in terms of creating jobs. This enables a public-private partnership business model, which is also prioritized by the European Green Deal and the Recovery and Resilience Fund. And it might be also important to understand that the public benefits, the environmental and social benefits of the transition to circular economy can be measured through LCA analysis and can be monetized through total economic valuation analysis. Monetizing them is important in order to showcase the benefits of the transition to circular economy in a monetary cost-benefit analysis framework. This is important, especially for policymakers, because policymakers have one budget and they need to allocate this budget between different ministries and different projects within these ministries. So they need a cost-benefit analysis prioritization. They need to monetize all the costs and benefits of each and every project and select those projects that produce the higher private in terms of profits, environmental and social benefits. And of course, the EU has a circular economy action plan, which is one of the main blocks of the European Green Deal, and this plan announces initiatives along the entire life cycle of products, targeting, for example, their design, promoting circular economy processes, fostering sustainable consumption, and aiming to ensure that resources used are kept in the economy for as long as possible. It also introduces legislative and non-legislative measures targeting areas where action at the EU level brings real added value. And the other mobilizers, of course, because I feel the need to refer to them, it is important. Circular economy is crucial, but you also need the other mobilizers in order to make the transition possible. The other mobilizers are decarbonization. We know that the EU has voted for 55% increase in investment, 55% reduction in EU in CO2 emissions, CO2 and greenhouse gas emissions. And in order to achieve that, we need to make additional investments of 315 billion per year. So what we have at the moment in the national and energy climate plans is the investments that are needed for a 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. In order to go to the 55 neutral target, we need additional investments of 315 billion. Now, in order to achieve all this, give me one sec, please. In order to achieve this target, of course, we need to be firmly aware of the technological pathways that are explicitly set in the recovery and resilience plans and in the general strategy of the EU Next Generation Instrument. The EU Next Generation Instrument explicitly says that each country should develop their recovery plans based on the following European flagships. And these are all flagships relevant to technology. The technological flagships are Power Up, that is lay the foundation for hydrogen lit markets in Europe and the related investments, Renovate, improve the energy and resource efficiency of buildings, recharge and refuel, promote future-proof clean technologies, Connect, provide universal access to rapid broadband services, modernize EU ID and key digital public services, Scale Up, that is increase cloud capacities and develop powerful, sustainable processor, and importantly, reskilling and upskilling. Focus investments and reforms on digital skills and educational and vocational training for all ages. This is crucial. We are going through the fourth industrial revolution. The pace of technological advancement is very fast, and major reskilling, upskilling, and lifelong training will need to take place in order to achieve and just transition, in order to allow the workforce to take part in a green and digital recovery as explicitly laid out in the European Green Deal and the recovery and resilience plans. And it's important to understand that the energy sector will have to play a big role, because at the moment with the current uncertainty, economic uncertainty that exists, and it's extrapolated and it is even enhanced by the pandemic, it is really very difficult to get private investors to invest in real investments, in investments in the real economy. So what is needed is for the public sector to come in and make the initial investments, mostly infrastructural investments, investments like grid, investments in e-mobility, investments in large climate adaptation and resilience projects. And it is important for the energy sector to be engaged, because governments directly or indirectly drive more than 70% of global energy investments. So at this time of crisis, their actions matter more than ever. Policy settings can actively steer energy-related investments onto more sustainable pathways. And of course, nature-based solutions are also important in the decarbonization pathway. These are solutions inspired and supported by nature, which are cost-effective, simultaneously provide environmental, social, and economic benefits, and help build resilience. And they can be based on urban wetlands, coastal wetlands, forest vegetation, coral reefs, dunes and beaches, urban green spaces, mangroves, and so on. The UN, and explicitly set by the UN Secretary, estimated that 1/3 of the transition to climate neutrality will derive from nature-based solutions. The other mobilizer, the second mobilizer, in addition to decarbonization, is, of course, climate change adaptation infrastructure. These are adaptation programs like early warning systems, making infrastructure resilience, improving dryland agriculture, and managing water resources, And it is important to understand that they create a triple dividend. They avoid losses due to climate change. They produce economic benefits from the investment programs, and they produce social and environmental benefits. And in order to be able to invest in those, we need to construct and develop and implement vulnerability indices, geographical, regional, sectoral, economic, and social vulnerability. And we need to start thinking about the just transition fund that will be focused both on mitigation and adaptation. One big project that we've just completed and has now transposed itself into an association is the Big Briquette project, which focuses on innovations for climate change adaptation, where we have produced a window with startups on droughts, floods, and other extreme weather events, startups that provide solutions towards these climate-related natural disasters. It is very interesting to look in this. These are startups with high TRLs, readily available for implementation, and they've been selected based on their merit and quality and potential for producing financial, but also social and environmental benefits. The second important mobilizer, the third important mobilizer, because as we said, is climate neutrality. A big part of it is circular economy, it's climate adaptation projects, and of course, it's sustainable finance and economic instruments. The European Investment Bank was the first one to announce the end of financing fossil fuel energy projects, and also accelerating and also announcing financing that will accelerate clean energy innovation, energy efficiency, and renewables. This movement was followed by the European Central Bank. It was followed by many national banks, and it is slowly being integrated into the financial structure of commercial banks. One crucial instrument here is the green bond instrument, alternatively called transition bonds or sustainability bonds. These have the same financial characteristics as conventional bonds, but they have a special commitment that the proceeds from the bond will be used to finance green projects that deliver environmental benefits. And 80% of issuance to date is allocated to energy, buildings, and transportation, but there are interesting cases where the issuance is also allocated in accordance to specific SDGs, which enables a very clear interlink between Agenda 2030 and the Green Bonds instrument. One important background document that supports sustainable financing, at least in Europe, is EU taxonomy. This EU taxonomy has been issued by the European Commission at the end of 2019, and it is a classification system for sustainable economic activities, which creates a common language for investors and lenders and allows scaling up of private and public investments to finance the transition to climate neutral and green economy. In addition to sustainable finance, there are other economic instruments such as taxes and tradable permits and sustainable insurance principles and instruments that allow behavioral change. It is important when you try to construct instruments to be aware of the following. First, that people need to be taxed on choices for which they have options that are affordable and readily accessible. So there is no point taxing carbon if you do not have the alternative technologies available at an affordable price. It is also important for the receipts of these taxes to be earmarked to green investments and to be returned in a transparent way back to those who pay the taxes. It is interesting to know that there exist 51 carbon pricing schemes at the moment in place, 25 of them in terms of emissions trading systems and 26 of them in terms of carbon taxes. And among the countries that have already submitted their nationally determined contributions for the Paris Agreement, for the implementation of the Paris Agreement, you can see the graph here. 88 of these countries have stated their intent to implement carbon pricing as part of their national climate policies. It is also important to understand and integrate in the economic case for the transition to sustainability and sustainable recovery that this transition has beneficial effects on job creation. These are indicators. I don't expect you to go through all this all the detail in these tables, but they are indicating employment multipliers. This is direct and indirect jobs created per million of investment in green technologies in the sector of electricity, hydrogen production, carbon capture utilization, reductions in methane emissions, transport, buildings, and industrial efficiency. And it is also important to understand that there is documented evidence that investments in line with the European Green Deal can lead to approximately 1 million new jobs in energy and energy-related markets. In the short term, jobs to be concentrated in existing programs that can mobilize money quickly, that is energy efficiency, retrofits, and sustainable development. In the longer term, higher investments will be possible in power sector projects and manufacturing on new efficient and low carbon vehicles. And most jobs created in Europe will be highly skilled positions requiring substantial training, and about 1/3 of new jobs will require moderate and retraining, which is needed for transitioning workers within the same industry or within the same occupation. Very few opportunities, unfortunately, for low-skilled jobs, and this will be a problem for Europe. And these are not just results from the International Energy Agency. These are results from various studies, including the study that I lead with Professor Jeff Sachs on the sustainable transformation of Europe, sustainable recovery of Europe based on SDGs and the European Green Deal. So the International Labour Organizations identifies that sustainable energy can create 4 times more jobs than those lost. The International Renewable Energy Agency estimates that energy transition related investment will yield net job gains in all regions of the world, and the International Monetary Fund and the European Commission shows that green recovery policies are superior for economic output and employment than business as usual stimulus. And ILO says that circular economy, organic agriculture, and nature-based solutions are significant employment generators in Europe. They produce growth in services, waste management, land restoration, afforestation, offsets job losses elsewhere. And finally, there are various national studies that confirm that investments in clean energy and energy efficiency create up to 3 jobs for each job lost in the fossil fuel sector. And in this whole recovery, we need to be very careful in order to care for equality and equity considerations. And we need measures to counterbalance the regressive effects of decarbonization policies. Lump sum transfers, reduction in income taxes, targeted energy efficiency measures, job retraining programs, and so on. Finally, if I had to give a few key messages to policymakers, a return to normal economic stimulus is environmentally unsustainable and economically inferior to a green stimulus. We need immediate interventions to focus on energy efficiency, retrofit, small-scale renewable, sustainable urban mobility. In the medium and longer run, we need to mobilize higher levels of investment for capital intensive projects to accelerate green energy transition. Apart from clean energy, other green interventions are also important: circular economy, nature-based solutions, organic agriculture, and we need to pay attention to the trade-offs. Programs with large short-term employment benefits may have weaker effects for long-run growth, and the green transition requires commitments to public spending and pricing reforms over a longer period of 5 to 10 years. Having said all that, let me take 3 minutes to introduce our team that works on many European and global projects that try to mobilize this sustainability transition. We work as a cluster of institutions. My research lab on socioeconomic and environmental sustainability at the Athens University of Economics and Business, the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network of Greece and Europe, and EIT Climate Kick Hub of Greece. We have projects in all 5 continents, most of them, of course, in Europe, as you can see the many small dots, but there are projects in all 5 continents. We work in 3 layers: research and innovation, innovation, acceleration, and deep demonstration, and education and training awareness. We provide academic programs, the undergraduate, postgraduate, and research PhD level, but also professional training programs and many events, public events. Our thematic priorities are projects in circular economy, green digital just recovery, climate change mitigation and adaptation. And in this respect, all the slides that you see moving are individual projects, that in this respect, we also lead the European, as I said, United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network report on a green and digital recovery in Europe. And I'm also leading as co-chair of the task force on jobs-based green recovery of the new Lancet Commission on COVID-19, the pathway towards the global recovery from COVID, the pathway that needs to be focused on the SDGs, the Paris Agreement, that it needs to focus on public investments that are oriented towards sustainable industries and digital economy, that should spread private investments, and the need for a big investment in an unprecedented commitment to upskilling and reskilling. Within this framework, we have this Piagon project, which is the reason for today's conference. This is the Western Balkan Circular and Climate Innovation project, who has the goal of building an ecosystem for circular climate-related innovation that catalyzes systems transition in sequences from experiment through collaboration to implementation. And these are the initiatives of the project: design and test a new co-creator circular economy implementation framework, connect actors in implementing and co-creation processes, define Balkan sharing and exchange processes, establish first business buy-in, drafting first revenue models for Balkans, map gaps, tackle to industries and financial services, establish local governments, and co-design a concept and conduct feasibility study. Our second thematic priority is blue growth. We have one Euro-Asia initiative for blue growth in the Mediterranean, Black Sea, Caspian Sea, and the Aral Sea. We have a global initiative for sustainable shipping and ports, and we have many horizon and Interreg projects on coastal and marine blue growth. Our third theme is water, food, energy nexus, smart agriculture, and smart earth and water systems. And in addition to the many horizon projects, we also lately received a big ERC award of 10 million to develop the and design the next generation of earth and drinking water system using water system analysis, control theory, economics, and artificial intelligence. Finally, our third layer of work is the climate kick. This is the biggest public-private partnership for accelerating the transition to climate neutral economy. And within this, we run an accelerator. We run professional programs, professional training programs, and many awareness events, one which is the Climathon, which is a global event. I will stop here in order to introduce the rest of the panel and share with you the very lively ecosystem of people that are working for this sustainability transition within Europe, within Greece, but also across the Atlantic. These are people that we work with, and we are very honored to work with because we think that they are crucial mobilizers towards the correct pathway for a resilient, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth. An economic growth that will support the well-being of people, will bring prosperity to businesses, will safeguard the environment, and will allow everybody to be part of the transition. Thank you very much. And at this point, I would like to introduce the first next speaker of our panel. And I'm extremely happy to have with us Yiannis Geragotellis. Yiannis, your surname is complicated, and because I always call you Yiannis, I make an effort to.
I'm used to it since my childhood, so don't bother.
So you had a whole lifetime to get used to
yeah.
difficulties of people pronouncing your name. Yiannis,
so
yes.
Thank you,
just
Phoebe.
wanted to say to people that you are the CEO and founder of KiNNO, and a company that is focused on energy innovation and energy education and training, and also serving as the hub of energy kick. So you should know that the European Institute of Innovation and Development has different knowledge and information communities that we call KICs, and one of the most important ones is the energy kick. So we represent the climate kick, and Yiannis represents the energy kick, and also today we have the representative of health kick. I believe Yorgos Megas, but firstly we are gonna focus on on the energy kick. Yiannis, the floor is yours. I'm so happy that you are with us.
Okay, thank you, Phoebe. Thanks for the kind introduction, and thanks to the organizers. I will try to be brief. Can I share my screen, because I see you have your slide? And try also to meet the deadline of 6, where, as we have just been informed, we need to move into a different address. So please let me know if you share my screen.
Yes, we can see your
okay screen. All right, so thanks. I'm going to give you a practitioner perspective. I've been working a lot, quite a few years in the innovation arena, and set up innovation consultancy KiNNO, and so I have the perspective. I'm wearing both hats, which I'm going to use. Tell you a few words about KiNNO and Inno Energy, some challenges that I see during the innovation deployment phase, and a framework for the circular economy, and conclude with some ideas about circularity and our role as KiNNO as Inno Energy. In principle, as I told you, we're an innovation consultancy bringing together various projects and expertise on technology transfer, open innovation, and we also represent Inno Energy in other organizations in Greece. What we actually do is that we're bridging the gaps. We facilitate the interaction between the various stakeholders of public and private sector. And we've been working in a number of initiatives, clusters, and setup of innovation structures, mainly in agro-food, energy, and blue growth sectors. The key services are relevant to promotion and deployment of innovation, for the policy measures for the public sector, and supporting researchers, startups, and SMEs. I'm going a bit fast. When it comes to innovation and services to SMEs, we help them identify the market, develop business models, and be able to work with bigger guys, either SMEs or corporates, or identify investors. Now, Inno Energy is one of the leading EIT accelerators focusing on sustainable energy. Has been founded since 2010. We have offices all over Europe. We are the hub of Greece and Cyprus here in Greece. And we have, as Inno Energy, invested in more than 300 assets, a couple of them based in Greece. The key areas of expertise and investments are relevant to energy for circular economy, energy from renewables, IoT and smart technologies, energy storage, energy efficiency, and e-mobility. This is where our portfolio ranges, and our investment opportunities are targeted. And these type of projects and SMEs gave us some highlights, which I'm going to share with you. Depending on the nature of the SME and the technology providers, from startup to scale up and bigger projects. Now, we also have been active in attracting several investments in Greece from all over the Balkan region and the Southeast and Central Europe, initiatives with the National Bank of Greece to attract investments in Greece. And now, regarding let's go to the main course, regarding to the innovation deployment, what I would like to share with the team here is that the last 20-25 years, I think it's now I'm working in the sector, it has been apparent that the key stakeholders which are involved in the deployment of innovation are actually coming from both private and public sector. Initially, the notion and the concept, the so-called linear model, was that pumping money from the public sector to SMEs would trigger innovation, market deployment, etc., which proved to be quite an unrealistic hypothesis. So it's been more than 25 years that we are talking now about the so-called systemic approach and need to integrate the innovation deployment with other actors. And this has been the case in Greece, especially the last years, with not only investors, but financing departments getting into the play, and corporates which sort of engage themselves in innovation capacities. The emphasis is being given the last year a lot of startups, which to my understanding is sort of a let's say a misleading approach, nevertheless towards the good direction. I'm going to argue that SMEs are actually the engine of innovation, and they need the capacity and muscle to develop innovations. So the challenge is for startups to easily grow into scale-ups. And the thing is that, especially in Greece, and I believe the same in Balkan to the degree that I have this know-how, this is sort of a fragmented landscape with one-on-one relationship, for example, between public and SMEs, between investors and startups, between corporates that are looking to expand their knowledge base and SMEs. Nevertheless, it looks like the overall approach lacks a systemic approach, lacks an integration of all the different players. In order for example, for the startups and SMEs in their innovation phase to proactively engage, identify rightly the market and engage end users or potential customers, and or for example, for the public good when it comes to transition to be taken into account, something which of course is not priority for SMEs or corporates. So there has to be let's say a systemic approach towards that. I believe that the energy transition and circularity offer an excellent opportunity for that, and I'm going to argue in my next slides about an appropriate systemic solution approach and a framework for that, which is the case for the circular economy. I'm arguing that, for example, when it comes to the deployment of circular economy solutions, we need to take into account the various value chains, the so-called systemic solution where you engage a lot of sectors across the value chains. You need to address them by a number of technologies, not only energy or environmental, but digital and key-enabled technologies. Engage a number of partners from public and private sector and focus on the sustainability of the technology and solution, something which is being proved through the relevant demonstration projects. And this is an example for a Greek case study, which I would not go into the details now, but it's just an example of a circular project that we are working on, covering the whole value chain. And to cut the long story short, I would like to claim that apart from the previous players, when it comes to the transition scene, and particularly the circularity, the innovation deployment also needs to respect the citizens and the need for demonstration and pilot projects. This is, to my understanding, the key issue which needs to be addressed and needs to be transferred to the policymakers, right? From the aspect of technologies, system and solutions, I'm arguing that we need to move into challenges and opportunities which will trigger both the technology development, the investments, and the multiplier economic effects out of this transition. And that's what we do with Inno Energy in Greece, developing a number of new technologies in where it's not only the technology matters. These are two cases where we try to deploy power plants and desalination solutions in the Greek islands, and we understand the complexity of the approach. and the need for systemic integration of the technology, the operators, the public sector, and definitely the need for financing small-scale pilot projects. I cannot argue enough about that. All the cases we are discussing now with six or seven cases from Inno Energy that are interested in to enter the Greek market. In all the cases, it is the demonstration phase which needs to be strengthened, and it's actually what is missing from the prototype to the full deployment. Actually, this is the good thing is that in the next programming period, these remarks are being addressed effectively through the Green Deal, through the various funds like Innovation Fund, which scale-ups projects, and acceleration funds. So these are quite useful tools for deployment of new technologies. I think that I'm about to expire, at least at Zoom phase. That's what we do. So
I wanted to ask you something. This is an amazing presentation, very coherent and inclusive. Do you, what is your feeling in terms of the understanding of the public sector and in general, the government with regards to the need for systemic innovation, for a transformative change? I mean, are they still working in silos and linear models?
Yeah, I believe that there is not a challenge or need-based approach. I believe that the approach is still more on the push side rather than the pull side. This is one observation. The second one is that we try somehow with all the various financing tools to cover a lot of sectors while I believe that the country and the size of the country and the economy should rather focus on a specific and selected number of sectors, where Greece has a leading role and has some significant advantages. And I would argue that when it comes to energy transition, both energy efficiency and circularity, the geography of the country and the resources they possess is an excellent asset for such technologies not only to be developed, but also to be deployed. This is the second. And thirdly, I would argue that when it comes to energy and perhaps in circularity, I don't have such a big experience, so excuse me if I make any sort of wrong assumption. I believe that the policymakers should fund not only the development of the technology, but also the deployment. It is in a number of cases, the various operators from municipalities to energy companies or ports are looking for funds to absorb the new technologies and deploy them in full scale. And I haven't seen so far initiatives and financing tools to effectively address that. Just a few remarks and I can elaborate.
This is crucial, Yiannis. It's not about developing the technology. It's not about accelerating the technology to a mature phase. It's about supporting the actual use of the technology in large scale. And that is something that should create public-private partnership. It is the new model. It's been happening around Europe. It's not yet happening in Greece. Okay.
Yeah, that's indeed.
Thank you very much, Yiannis.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna move to our next speaker, is Dr. Alexis Papaharalambopoulos. Alexis, we are very happy to have you again with us. Alexis is a PhD in engineering at the Department of Mechanical Engineering and Aeronautics at the University of Patras and represents here EITManufacturing Greece, an EIT that we worked with at the European scale through cross-KIC projects. Please, Alexi, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. I will start sharing my screen. I believe by now you should be able to see it, and as a matter of fact, in full screen, right?
Yes, perfect.
So let's see what the questions of circular economy and sustainability in manufacturing. I will begin with describing the laboratory itself. A laboratory for manufacturing systems and automation is located in the University of Patras in Greece. And it is organized in 3 different scientific groups, which can help everyone understand what the manufacturing activities in general can be classified into. Specifically manufacturing processes, robots and automation, and manufacturing systems, which you can also see here briefly structured. The processes have to do with machine level interactions of the tools and the parts that are being produced. Then there are the robots that are integrated in manufacturing. For example, collaborative robotics is very relevant these days. And of course, there are the systems which deals with line level approach, factories, even manufacturing networks. There is a 4th group that is not shown here, which is kind of horizontal and has to do with manufacturing and industrial informatics, which can be considered to be the backbone for the activities. But this can be used as a map towards understanding how circularity and sustainability can intervene in the manufacturing sector, because each one of the activities has its own workflow with respect to optimization. And by optimization, I mean, I take it as granted that we can include circularity and sustainability criteria. And this has been proved to be accelerated, this procedure, by the so-called 4th industrial revolution, which has begun in the recent few years. So let's see how specific concepts, like for instance the sustainability, the energy efficiency, and the circularity, can be taken into account in manufacturing. And then we can see some more theoretical concepts such as dematerialization, which are very interesting and related. Each one of these works that are going to be presented more or less has been derived out of a project, but we'll keep it in the concept phase due to consistency here. So the first performance indicators in terms of attributes that have been introduced to manufacturing can be seen here in this slide, and they could be summarized down to cost, quality, flexibility, and time. But then there has been in the past some need for expansion. And for example, energy efficiency or other sustainability related aspects have been integrated in the criteria list. Now with the Green Deal, with the European Green Deal, there are 8 thematic areas that could affect the way we think in the integration of the performance indicators themselves. For example, there are other climate-related indicators we have to take into account. For example, emissions could be one example. The way that energy is produced, if I may use the term, has to be taken into account. Circularity workflows. Energy and resource efficiency is a very relevant concept, and of course, when dealing with supply chains, then the whole resources optimization has to be taken into account, either with respect to the resources themselves or the repercussions to the environment. We can move on to the concept of sustainability, which can be considered in the triple P sense: people, planet, profit. So there are economic indicators like cost itself, there are environmental indicators like the emissions, and then there are social indicators like absenteeism. Professor Koundouri mentioned that they can all be monetized somehow, and this is not useful in terms of understanding them, understanding their impact, but it's also useful in the technical sense that they can be easier taken into consideration when it comes to optimization, and it can be either process level optimization or line level optimization when considering the whole production line on its own. Then there's the concept of circularity. For example, what you see here is the workflow that has to do with disassembly scenario, and the goal is to be able to reuse and remanufacture parts of the part that is being disassembled. So there are circularity that criteria that can be characterized as low level. For example, when it comes to technical analysis that involves stress analysis, these have to be taken into consideration because the strength of the part is very crucial for its use. And then there are more higher level criteria like the recyclability index, which is not a very established index. And of course, the cost itself. The term of cost and the concept of investment have slightly changed with the introduction of circular economy. So it is not that intuitive to discuss cost in a plain way. So we have to take into account the whole life cycle of the product, which is now, of course, circular. And then there is the energy efficiency concept, which can be considered in a non-onion approach because there are the processes, then there are machines, and then there are the factories and the networks. And of course, we have to minimize the use of resources and energy itself, keeping the result, the outcome of the manufacturing procedure the same. Professor Koundouri also mentioned the use of LCA, which is very useful in comparison of the product. So, for example, you can compare the use phase and the manufacturing phase of vehicles when it comes to gasoline, diesel, or electric vehicles, for example. You can see separately its life cycle phase and its impact on environment or other aspects. Manufacturing is a pretty crucial case in the automotive industry. And then finally, we come to the concept of dematerialization, which has to do with minimizing the material, the resources that are embedded into the content. And by this, what you can see in the diagram on the right is two indicators over time, and time refers to the generations of a product. And we can think of a way to define both knowledge and material that are embedded into the product, and they seem to change over time from generation to generation. And as a matter of fact, the material is reduced, which is good in terms of environmental impact, and the knowledge is increased, of course, because of innovation introduced and technology integration in the production. Then there is the issue of addressing sustainability through digitalization, because there are digital tools, the so-called digital twins, that can help directly or indirectly optimize the sustainability of a product or a manufacturing procedure. And now a few words, I think I have a few moments yet, about the EITManufacturing Greece Hub in Greece, which is an opportunity for the Balkan area and the broader area of southern Greece, southern Europe. It has been the first year of operation of this hub, and it has been involved in technical activities, meaning innovation activities, business creation activities, and education, which is a very important case also for the circular economy aspect, because we can take advantage of the concepts of teaching and learning factories. So I will skip the intermediate slides for reasons of simplicity, and I will go directly to the opportunities for knowledge transfer and funding. There are, of course, proposal opportunities for direct funding, and companies can contribute in terms of technology as the end users or as testbed providers. And then there are training opportunities. There are two concepts, the teaching factory concept and the learning factory concept. The first one has to do with industry setting a problem, a real life problem, an industrial size and scale problem. And academia tries to provide a solution to it using technologies that industry does not or cannot integrate at the moment. So it's a two-way communication in the sense that academia learns about the feasibility of technology and of its integration in the production line, and industry gains in know-how in terms of technology, and this is a great opportunity for circular economy, because one could integrate concepts like circular scenarios and sustainability. And the other concept is of that of learning factory, where academia usually sets a test bed, which has to do with hands-on experience, and industry sends out their people in order for them to be trained in a specific technology. And of course, there is access to digital nuggets. You can think of them as a learning material. So that is more or less.
Thank you very much
from my
Alex.
side.
Very, very interesting and very important that we all work together, because my manufacturing is a sector that needs to move quickly towards the carbon neutral, decarbonization era. I wanted to ask you, what kind, KICs are public-private partnerships, and obviously we all receive generous funding from the European Commission, but what kind of private partnerships are you bringing in? And how easy has it been for KIC manufacturing to attract private funding?
Well, there is the co-funding side, at least for the first year. So it has to be quite interesting in terms of added value to the industry for them to join such activities. But the flagships, there are 4 flagships in EITManufacturing related to state-of-the-art challenges. For example, customization, zero-defect manufacturing. Zero-defect manufacturing, by the way, is highly related to circular economy and sustainability, because the repercussions, the financial repercussions in terms of resources are very relevant. So this has been quite attractive to them, and the first year seems to be quite successful in terms of participation and in terms of results. So far, reviewing the KPIs, it has been quite good in terms of results of technical activities, and for all 3 aspects: business creation, innovation, and education, of course.
Okay, and do you think that it seems you are optimistic? Are you optimistic with regards to government involvement as well, in addition to the EIT funding and private funding?
That's a good question. There is an opportunity with the RIS framework. because besides the three main sections, there is also financing dedicated to risk countries, and Greece is considered to be a modest innovator, so there is additional attractive investment material there. And I think that is very attractive to the public sector as well, because they would like to see that this brings results in terms of integration in the production sector, because it's not just about producing. For example, there are risk priorities related to informatics, for example. These are of high value to manufacturing as well. It does not have to be pure production, because not all regions can offer that. So personally, I think it's very attractive to the public sector as well.
Excellent, excellent. Let's stay hopeful that these partnerships will materialize at the large scale. Thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you.
Now I have the pleasure to introduce another good friend, George Megas. George is coordinator of EIT Health Greece, and he's also the national contact point for Horizon 2020. George,
hello, Phoebe. Let me share my presentation first, and thank you for inviting me in this Sea Beacons project meeting, which is very interesting. Here's, you can see it, of course. Well, I will say a few things about health care and circularity, but I will focus more on my role as a national contact point for Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe. And I will link all the things that you said before with the European Commission's funding programs. And you will see that the digital transition is everywhere. It's digital transformation with green aspects, and especially the digital cluster of Horizon Europe program is full also of circular economy, sharing economy, circular green aspects that you will understand. First of all, I have to tell you that I don't know if I've told you so far that I'm actually an environmental engineer. It doesn't matter that I'm working now in the health sector or information communication technologies. Here you can see me collecting water samples in the mountains of Cyprus. And continuing, I don't know if you can see me properly. You can, just to be sure. Okay.
Yes, I can see.
Yes. Continuing, I will jump into Horizon Europe and tell you that, of course, when you see a program focusing again, starting the first slide saying that their focus is to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and mitigate the climate change by and allocate 35% of the budget there, you understand that the importance the Commission has put on these matters. Of course, also the goal is to have a prosperous future for people and the planet, and increase the boost the union's competitiveness and growth. Of course, probably you've seen the three pillars of the Horizon Europe program. The first pillar remains similar to the Horizon 2020 with the European Research Council, Marie Curie actions, etc. The second pillar used to be called industrial leadership, and now it's global challenges and European industrial competitiveness. And it's divided in 6 clusters: the health cluster, the culture creativity cluster, civil security for society cluster, digital industry and space cluster, climate, energy and mobility, those 3 are together, and food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture and the environment. Pillar number 3 is Innovative Europe, and it has the European Innovation Council, which includes the EIC Accelerator, the EIC Pathfinder, Fast Track to Innovation and prizes. The European Innovation Ecosystem, which is a sub-program that's quite new and aims to connect the regional stakeholders, clusters, hubs with international initiatives and also with other kind of support from local or international. And the EIT, the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. You can see here what the clusters will be comprised of, and you can see that, for example, the climate, energy and mobility cluster will focus on climate science solutions, energy systems and grids, industrial competitiveness in transport, smart mobility, buildings and industrial facilities in energy transition. Well, the cluster that I'm the national point for will also focus on circular industries, advanced materials, low carbon and clean industry, advanced computing and big data. I'm talking about the digital industry and space cluster. So what other novelties has the Commission introduced? The biggest novelty is their research and innovation missions, what is a mission? It's a portfolio of actions across a variety of disciplines that intends to achieve bold and inspirational and measurable goals, like what was, for example, it was inspired by the Apollo mission. You will see the missions here, and you can see that the first mission is the adaptation to climate change, including societal transformation, fight against cancer, soil health and food, which we talked about, desertification and deforestation and all these aspects, climate neutral and smart cities, healthy oceans, seas, coastal and inland waters. Those missions, for example, you will have a consortium and you will apply to a specific topic in a call in the digital cluster, but maybe this is a call that is contributing to a mission. There you will be, let's say, you will have deliverables and KPIs for your project and the specific goals, but also you probably be audited for your contribution to the mission. It will be dual. Now we said at the beginning that the Commission also focuses on this time a little bit more on taking the research to the market. So it has the European Innovation Council at place. The most, let's say, interesting for me at least, the instrument is the accelerator there that allows for SMEs, not consortia, a single SME can apply, which has a fantastic idea beyond state of the art in all sectors. And if it has a technology readiness level of 6, 0 is an idea, 10 is in the market, 6 is close to pilot, if your SME can apply and receive up to 2.5 million as a grant with a funding rate of 70% for your innovative solution to go to the market. If you have a technology readiness level of 8, meaning closer to the market, you can request for additional funding up to 15 million. And you will have to give equity to the fund created by the European Commission because it's equity funding above 2.5 million. For example, this is a company from Greece that has received funding from the SME instrument, as it was formerly known, the EIC Accelerator. The Bright Solar produces photovoltaic panels that allow ultraviolet radiation to come in and visual and light, and also generates electricity. And well, we want smart cities, we want digital transformation, and we want it to govern by the Green Deal, and the Commission also wants to take SMEs to the next level of digitalization and digital transformation and digital skills. So we also have the Digital Europe program that will be funding digital innovation hubs. Well, you will learn a lot more if you attend the conference by Dignity EU and Lux Innovation and the European Commission on the 26th and 27th of January 2021. Well, actually, one of the hubs that were actually the European Digital Innovation Hub that EKT, my organization, and Athena Research Center is participating, led by Democritus, is focusing on smart cities. How to say that, and the goal is to support SMEs and the public sector to test technologies before investing, to access to funding, networking, and also connect all these hubs together and to use enabling technologies such as artificial intelligence, hypercomputing, and cybersecurity and digital skills. Now, what is open for you at this moment is the European Green Deal. I won't say the goals because you've spoke about them a lot of times. And at this moment, Horizon 2020, I think, has its last calls, and those are the calls, so the Green Deal calls, like those you can see here, and the cutoff dates are on the 26th of January, if I'm not wrong, 2021. Like calls like preventing and fighting extreme wildfires, building and renovating in energy in resource-efficient way, green airports, and other topics and calls you can apply with your consortium, but you have to focus on a higher technology readiness level of outcomes around 7. And now this is a surprise of a bit. It's a draft work program. You shouldn't share it and you shouldn't take it for granted. but you can see, take a first glance on the digital industry and space cluster in Horizon Europe. It's divided in 6 destinations. The first 2 destinations are closely related to manufacturing or industry, and you can see that they're quite green: climate neutral, circular, and digitized production. And destination 2, a digitized, resource efficient, and resilient industry. Continue, we have other more focused to digital technologies destinations, but also circular, digital and emerging technologies for competitiveness and fit for the Green Deal is destination number 4. Destination number 5 is about space. And just a quick view of the destination number 1. You can see that the destination number 1 is divided in another 6 sections, but all of the sections are green and circular: green, flexible, and advanced manufacturing, for example. Advanced digital technologies for manufacturing, new way to build accelerated disruptive change in construction, hubs for circularity, a stepping stone towards climate neutrality and circularity in industry. And for example, here we can see a specific topic that we can apply. Those may change though. Integration of pandemic waste node hubs for circularity. I searched what waste node means, although probably you have heard the term. And you can see that this program is governed by sustainable development and green issues. Same goes for the next calls, but okay, when we go to the digital, I won't speak a lot about it. It's mostly focused to what we knew as an information and communication technologies program. Now, very few things about the health sector. It's amongst the dirtiest sectors regarding energy consumption, water consumption, and waste production. Well, by study of Johnson & Johnson, we're seeing that the growing importance of more sustainable products in the global healthcare industry, and those that need those products are mostly the purchasing, material management, the nurses, the C-suite executives. This will create a more sustainable hospital, the focus on green materials and circularity. We see here that 85% of hospitals rate that being free of heavy metals and latex and end-of-life solutions and energy efficiency as important attributes. 54% of hospitals say green attributes are very important in their purchasing decisions. And 35% of hospitals switch suppliers due to additional green sustainable product offerings. So we can see this also happening. Some nice new well-being and health-related products that are reusable and actually ready to be remade, like these Adidas shoes that you can take back and they will create again shoes with your waste. Philips is also focusing on refurbishing and upgrading equipment and sell it back again, which helps also the hospital and Philips. And also Roche Pharmaceuticals has received a lot of awards about how circular it is. Thank you. You can continue, and you can call it.
Thank you, George. It has been very, very exciting to see this presentation of Horizon Europe, especially for me, because in an hour I give a speech on that exactly. But I think for our audience, just to identify the various opportunities that you can find within Europe, as long as you have a very strong research technological basis. The European innovation and research agenda is strong, although the budget has been reduced compared to what we were expecting in the new MFF. It is still strong, and it provides a lot of opportunities for researchers, for SMEs, for deep demonstration projects, for upscaling. And we should all collaborate in order to absorb this money. These are big projects. Now European Green Deal Horizon projects vary from 10 billion to 45 million per proposal. So it's basically building on collaboration and also focusing on upscaling of technologies with high TRL. So it was extremely informative. With regards to the health sector, what is happening in Greece? Do we have any vision, long-run vision, in terms of transforming the health sector into a circular, clean sector that is, of course, socially efficient, but it is also with lower environmental footprint. Are there any initiatives toward that?
We were mostly focusing on the digital transformation of the healthcare system. Well, all efforts are for creating electronic medical records and utilizing the public procurement for innovation if possible. But regarding the circularity of the healthcare sector, this is not up in the discussions yet so much. At least I haven't heard a lot about it. But there are solutions that can help. Who knows? Maybe hybrid solutions, like we can see later on. Solmeya could also support the such sectors. Who knows regarding their CO2 emissions, or who knows? But there need to be more discussions. So far, what the hospitals do, for example, they go to the procurement system or to international procurements, and they ask for those that offer technology or those that can manage their waste. And this is a very difficult. These are very difficult operations. You need to have 100 different certifications to be able to play a role in this circle of procurement, and it's a few companies only that do that.
That's why I'm thinking that we need to rethink the system there. It needs to be a system that is obviously very closely monitored with regards to quality, but it needs to allow more flexible structures if we are going to revive our hospitals and the whole health sector. And we've seen how important they are, especially in these days of pandemic. And I mean, by casual observation, you can understand how much cost saving and saving in terms of environmental footprint can be achieved by transition to circularity of a hospital. Just a unit, one unit, it could have major benefits in terms of cost and environment, and also create lots of jobs.
We hope to see pilot projects first, like maybe through Horizon Europe in the health sector or in the environment sector, or the environment cluster. You can see probably some, maybe even PCP and PPI actions, like those requesting innovations from SMEs to be tested in these environments or in a consortium of hospitals and other partners. We can see that first, and this is also a place that in Horizon 2020 we didn't do so well. We didn't have so many applications in the area of PCP and PPI. Yes, and another thing is that maybe if we see digital transformation, we'll have better monitoring and we'll identify critical points easier and measure easier the waste that is produced. That can be an easier way to transform the hospitals.
Exactly, I fully agree. Thank you, George. Very informative.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
It's always a pleasure to have you. Now I am moving to Alysia Helming. She's chairman of Earthfund Global. She's an amazing woman that has been active and very successful in the energy transition, private investment area. And she will talk to us about her new endeavor. Alysia, the floor is yours. Thank you very much for being with us. Alysia is connecting with us from California, and I do thank her for making the time to share with us her insights.
Thank you very much, Phoebe, and thank you for inviting me here. I'm going to go ahead and set my presentation up. I'm actually in the mountains, the Rocky Mountains right now, so it's Wyoming and Idaho right on the border in the United States. So I'm enjoying nature. How about that? All right.
That sounds very, very nice.
It is.
We envy you, Alysia.
This is a real Christmas tree right here. This is not a background. Okay, so just a word about me. I love the health theme because I have asthma and pollution is always on my mind. So I was like, I know how to tie everything into into why I'm here, or why I'm helping clean energy, etc. My own story is I started the first wind farm company with my husband in Kansas 20 years ago. And that company, Trade Wind Energy, became the largest in the United States at one point. And then at the end of last year, it was sold to Enno Green Power. And now it's a major contributor to the world for wind and solar. So I feel very proud of that legacy. On top of that, I've started a biofuels plant in my garage and also a solar company. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what I'm doing now, which is called Earthfund. So as I mentioned, I'm a pioneer in renewable energy and sustainability. We're also partnered with Global Green, which is it's a celebrity-based backed influencer here in the United States, and they're part of Green Cross International. My invention, though, and contribution to this entire thing, all started with Earth Index. Sorry, I'm going to get some water. It's very early in the morning here, so I'm catching my breath. So all of this started with all of the lessons that I've learned through the years, and Earth Index is the culmination of all those lessons that I've learned. Basically, Earthfund it's a nonprofit vehicle that sits around a technology platform. Actually, could I have a moment? I'm sorry. I need a moment, just really quick.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So let me. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to wait for a couple of minutes, or do you want me to go to the next speaker and come back to you?
Just 1 minute, if you would, if that's okay.
Okay, so let me just tell the audience while we are waiting for you to come back, Alysia, that Alysia is the CEO of Earth Index, and this is an idea that we currently try to put forward to the green government, but also green energy companies. I am part of the board of Earthfund and involved in Earth Index, and the idea is to have a platform that serves the entire country with which enables through GIS multi-layer mapping to identify all the opportunities for renewable energy at different locations and at different combinations. This is a bird's eye view of the existing situation and possible interventions at a large scale, but also smaller scale. And it is something that will be very efficient and useful, not just for the energy companies and the energy sector, but also for governance and for the Ministry of Energy and Development, so that all opportunities are understood, assessed, and the choice of intervention, the choice of investment is really based on a very coherent cost-benefit analysis of the different options. So one location is good for wind energy, another is very good for solar energy, another location is very good in a combination of producing energy of both the solar and wind. Maybe there are opportunities offshore, like a very big project that we have, a 20 million project that we had on multi-use offshore platforms, where energy production was done through wind, solar, wave energy, and at the same time, these platforms were used for managing fisheries and maritime transport and aquaculture. So all this opportunity needs to be visible and assessed in a very robust way in order to identify the opportunities that are really those that are going to be producing financial private benefits. They are gonna producing public benefits in terms of job creation, in terms of growth multipliers, and in terms of reducing the environmental footprint. And Alysia, you are back, so the floor is yours again. Thank you, Alysia.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry about that. I had some things going here. So a big part of what I learned from the EU in witnessing what I think is amazing there is the consortium effort. And we've heard over and over again how we need to connect. We need to connect all the different stakeholders. And so this technology was also born out of the idea that we could bring some of these Silicon Valley giants, these giant technology companies together and utilize them in one platform. So our advisors include Google, for instance, and Esri, and we're working with Microsoft and Amazon on our cloud features of this. So we're bringing everybody together as much as possible. We also want to bring together all the different stakeholders. So including what I heard Yiannis say earlier was that we need to bring all the stakeholders together to make a solution. So this platform is a way of bringing all of those stakeholders together, and we're creating a blueprint. We're starting in Greece and in California. So if you think about this, the birthplace of ancient innovation was Greece, right? The birthplace of modern innovation is California. So why not? Why not these two places? It's perfect. And they're almost exactly across the world from each other. The things that we looked at, though, we looked at what's going on in these places that enables a technology like this to work. So for instance, the way it works is we're using maps. We're layering maps of data, 100 plus layers of data. And then we have a bird's eye view, like you see here, a bird's eye view of where all the wind and solar and different types of renewables are best sited. And it's an instant look. And it's using predictive learning. So it's machine learning with our Earth intelligence is what we're calling it, which then predicts which each user needs, such as a project developer or a utility or a government. Whoever you are, it's thinking ahead of what your needs are and predicting where the best sites are for the entire country. And then from there, you can zoom into a site and you can see all the specific opportunities for that site. So what we love about Greece, for instance, is with COVID, I mean, COVID's been horrible, but one great thing is that there's been a lot of digitizing. So the digital efforts from the government around renewables recently is amazing. There's land registry work, there's permitting, licensing efforts that are going on, and all those things will help this effort. So this picture here is what I really wanted to say at the beginning, and I was trying to say, is that what we do is we bring together, we have an engine in the middle, that is the technology that we're talking about here. And then around that are all the different platforms that we offer. And these are all different teams, by the way, that have come together. And each of them interacts in a different way with the platform and enables it. In the middle here, you see all the different nonprofit organizations. And these, many of them which we already know, for instance, EIT Climate Kick, these are all amazing organizations that are part of the effort that we're putting together. We have an education program. We have Earth Pledge, which is where a country can stand up and say, here's what we're doing. And we find a monumental building, for instance, and we install solar on the roof. And then we also work with communities. This is on the nonprofit side. Lastly, we're focused on the power grid, because if you think about Greece specifically, and this is one thing I love about Greece, the issues with the islands, for instance. So I see that there's some issues sometimes where there's a cultural issue, or there's an economic impact, for instance, on an island, where they want to put a big wind farm in, or they want to put in, solar or something like that. The interconnection of islands to the mainland, if it can be done more efficiently, in maybe different ways with proper planning and smartness with the grid, then we can change the way renewables are seen for the entire country and implement it. I think that's the end of my presentation, but I would love to talk more if you need me to.
Thank you so much, Alysia. You are so efficient and you're so inspiring. I can document that through personal experience. Indeed, what you do is really providing capacity building to a country that has huge potential but needs further capacity building. And this is very much appreciated. And I hope the whole project will be very successful.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Alex Karydis. Alex is a partner in Sporos platform, another inspiring initiative that tries to mobilize a transition to circular economy in a very, very clever structure. Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, dear Phoebe and all. Just a second to share my presentation. I guess it's visible now.
Yes.
There's been a lot of great discussion till now. I will start by the so-called third pillar, sustainable finance, which proves to be a game changer in actually materializing all these great initiatives and innovative systemic changes that we are discussing about. So sustainable finance is a prerequisite and can really make the change in order to see this transition not only towards a greener future, but also towards a more inclusive and climate resilient future. Sporos platform, we like to call it the new approach to materialize a circular economy. It's not just about finance, as you will see during the presentation, but the main idea starts from from the shortfalls that we need to address in order to materialize the circular transition, mostly of the SMEs. Phoebe presented before in a very coherent and inclusive way all the major developments happening right now. It was stressing that the European Green Deal, allow me to say, has three pillars. This is circularity, climate resilience, and inclusivity. And one, of course, helps the other. The total funding is more than $1 trillion if combined with the Resilience Fund. And I would like to stress the important developments in China, as China undertook a commitment towards becoming climate neutral by 2060. If we think what amount of products is being designed and produced in China, of course, you can realize that they mean business when they're about to make this transition. The Paris Agreement was the cornerstone regulatory speaking, and the circular economy story in the European Union starts back to 2015 in terms of an action plan and regulatory initiatives towards achieving specific goals. We already have the new circular economy action plan, but it was highlighting the fact that circular economy agenda was not something taken for granted in the very beginning. In order to move from the short idea of waste management and let's say operational efficiency to the systemic transitional agenda of circular economy, there was a huge discussion between industry, business, and financial sector. The industry was the one taking lead, but now the financial sector needs to actually follow the developments and find the important financing tools to support this transition. We use the definition of the European Commission, which exactly reflects the systemic approach. A circular economy is not just about the waste, it's how you maintain the value of products, materials, and resources in the economy for as long as possible. The circular financing is taking off, especially in 2020, and particularly after the pandemic crisis kickstart. Here you can see some very interesting data from a recent survey of Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which is one of the global leaders in circular economy. As you can see, from 2016 to 2020, the number of private market funds focusing on circular economy has increased by 10 times. This is number talking on its own, but the next number I'm going to present is even more important and shows clearly the trend. We have more than 6 times increase from the early 2020 till today in the number of public equity funds focusing on circular economy. They started with 0.3 billion, and right now we are in more than 2 billion being invested by really big players. You can see here that BlackRock, BNP Paribas, Goldman Sachs, Rabobank, Henkel, and Philips from the industrial side, and other really huge players are endorsing the circular transition agenda and put their resources in order to make it a big, also commercial and business success. Also, the European Union has taken major initiatives, particularly focused on the circular transition, as the largest national promotional banks and institutions of the European Union, along with the European Investment Bank, decided to launch a 10 billion joint initiative on circular economy. This is a phenomenal public investment support scheme towards circularity, and it already pays off, as we have tens of companies already getting more access to funds. Greece hasn't showcased the determination of Western and Central European countries, but I think that important decisions have been taken and are already on the way in order to cover the distance and really manage to become a regional circular economy hub. And Professor Koundouri, as far as I know, and of course the rest of our prominent speakers today, play a personal leadership role towards that direction. So when we start,
Alex, we'll try to be brief because we have one other speaker, and it's Vassilis Benos. Thank you.
Of course. When we started, just a few words about what we do as Sporos platform. When we started designing the financial and consultancy tools, we realized that in the market we have 3 major shortfalls: lack of awareness, what to do, lack of expertise, how to do it, and lack of funding, how to pay for it. This is why we designed the Sporos approach in a triangular way. We have an impact investment fund of 30 million that is about to start in early 2021. We're in the last stage of fundraising, combined with a knowledge and expertise platform through the circular economy consultancy called Sporos Circular Solutions, and an awareness raising NGO, Symbiosis, that has already organized the first Athens Circular Forum. In order to structure our tools, we performed a market study in more than 201 firms nationwide, and the results of this market study enabled us exactly to design the proper tools to materialize the transition of SMEs.
Alexa, I really have to have Vassilis say two.
Okay, I will leave the rest for the discussion. What I want to emphasize, since we want to focus on Balkans, is the recent report of the SDSM, where we can see that Greece, Cyprus, Romania, and Bulgaria are really lacking behind. There is a great room to improve several aspects, focusing mostly on decent economic growth, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, as well as circular economy and responsible consumption and production. And in order to materialize that, the answer, in my opinion, is really devote the necessary commitment towards the just transition. Because as you can see here in the metrics, leave no one behind is one of the worst scores for all Balkan countries right now. And in Greece, at least in the Western Macedonia, Peloponnese, and the islands, we're going to invest more than 5 billion. 50% of the local population needs reskilling or upskilling in order to come to grips with a new reality. And of course, this is not an easy challenge, and we need synergies between all the major stakeholders, from WAED, manpower organization, to local universities, to the business sector, private and public investments. And exactly in that transition, Sporos platform is ready to put both funds and consultancy, identifying the SMEs and making them exportable success stories. Thank you very much, and I leave the rest to the discussion.
And the important thing is that Sporos platform is not just giving money for a circular transition, it's also supporting with capacity building throughout the investment.
And if I may say, business don't want just money. This is the main finding of our market research. Business need mostly support and capacity building.
Exactly. Thank God Vassilis is a friend, is the CEO and founder of an amazing startup we accelerated in EIT Climate Kick. He has attracted lots of interest from from many investors. Vassilis, please go ahead. You are muted. Please unmute. Thank you, Vassilis.
Thank you very much for having me, Phoebe. Congrats, Alex, on your presentation. Thank you very much, George, for your mentioning me. Likewise, Yiannis. So I have to keep it as fast as possible. So Solmeya is pretty much an impact investment, climate positive venture, pretty much producing proteins by utilizing certain volumes of CO2. Vertically, we were lucky having been supported by you and EIT Climate Kick Accelerator Program. So we utilize the CO2, the sunlight, and of course the aqua side streams, and through vertical microalgae cultivation for optimal utilization of our resources, we are producing food, feed, pharma, and biodegradable bioplastic solutions. Why now? Because of the climate change, and we produce, as aforementioned, food, feed, pharma, cosmetics, fertilizers, and we do this by meeting 9 out of 17 SDGs. Same thing like Bill Gates and also the Bloomberg Green finance individuals have mentioned. Protein from microalgae is a niche but promising market where we could also focus. We may produce food, pets, or feed products, likewise biodegradable bioplastic packaging solutions. Those are a bunch of our competitive advantages that I'm not willing to further share as of now, given the limited time, obviously. So thank you all very much, especially Climate Kick for the support and KiNNO Energy for prior collaboration with them. Thank you.
You're just amazing and as flexible as it can get. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you for the spirit of collaboration, and thank you for the enthusiasm to make this transition a reality. We owe it to ourselves and to the future generations, our children. Thank you very much all. Thank you for being here. We should now move, thank you, Yiannis. We should now move to the link that Maria Ledoudi has shared with us for the closing session of the conference. So those of you that have time to do that, please join us in using this link. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you on the other link. Bye.